Unless we're willing to tackle the elephant in the room, which is the police union, the collective bargaining agreement that is associated with it, as well as the mandatory arbitration provisions through the state and the post board, then we will have so many of the issues that we continue to have with inhibiting of a culture shift.
Well, that is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey on the power of police unions as calls grow in Minneapolis and other major cities to defund police departments. Deroy Murdock is a Fox News contributor, a syndicated columnist, and contributing editor for the National Review Online. Deroy, good morning to you. I was looking forward to continuing this conversation with you this morning. Jacob Frey is a face, a name that we've all come to know in recent weeks. He was booed away by protesters there in Minneapolis for not committing to defunding his police. But he said, let me be clear in an interview yesterday, we're going after the police union. Easier said than done?
Sandra, much easier said than done. I saw the boy mayor of Minneapolis. I've never seen a politician turn tail and run away the way he did. It was unbelievable. I mean, it looked like he was being run out of a palace in the third world or something like that. Almost looked like he was in personal danger or something of the kind. But the Democrat Party's in a real pickle here because rather than sort of offer a broad program across the country into which everyone can buy, they sort of pick little groups and give different groups little goodies. And in this case, you've got different groups that are now going to start fighting each other. They've got the far left sort of activist, most energetic part of their base, which is calling for shutting down the police, getting rid of the police, abolishing the police. And then they've got the police unions, which of course are part of the big labor movement, and they expect to get their pay, their benefits, their wonderful pensions, that sort of thing. And now that's under threat. So they're going to have two large parts of the Democrat groups under the Democrat tent now fighting with each other. I think it's going to be very colorful.
Obviously, because of the high membership with these police unions and all the power that they do have. Joe Borelli was our guest earlier. He's a New York City council member, and he was talking about, or I should say, it was a warning to those activists, those protesters, in what they're calling for, and perhaps the unintended consequences of those actions. Here he is.
Nobody wants police brutality. Nobody wants unaccountable cops. But the communities that these activists are purporting to be helping are the very same communities that benefit the most from policing. That's going to be the real-life impact of these cuts. And sadly, you don't hear any talk about the victims of crimes from the progressive mobs.
So, Deroy, put aside the defunding debate that is going on. Perhaps just look at the reform. What is the bigger conversation and debate that we need to have when it comes to reforming our police?
Look, I think we can have a very useful and necessary discussion about better training. We've got, I think most police departments have cameras that their officers wear. I think that ought to be universal. Those are very positive things. Cops who are out of control need to be labeled and tracked so we can make sure that they behave themselves and you know, maybe they need anger management, whatever it might be. Those sorts of things are very positive, and I'm sure there are many other positive steps we can take. But this idea of just getting rid of the police, I mean, I know that the Democrat Party is very concerned about women's rights. I mean, if a woman is in her home and some former boyfriend, for example, maybe gets out of jail and wants to come and beat her or rape her or something like that, she's supposed to call some social workers to come in, some diversity consultants, something like this. I know the Democrat Party is very concerned about guns out in the streets. If somebody goes in and starts mowing down an elementary school, you know, who are you going to call? A psychologist? You know, there are instances where the Democrats are very concerned about certain things that criminals do, and they want to get rid of the very people who are there to stop the criminals. It's just kind of another utopian fantasy that they're peddling, and I think the negative consequences could be deadly, and particularly in minority neighborhoods where, unfortunately, there's a lot of crime. It's going to spike, and you're going to have a lot of black lives that should matter instead being dead lives or dead black people. And this is going to be the deadly bloodshed that's the result of this out of control fantasy idea that 2 weeks ago would have been laughable, and now it's being adopted almost as a core plank of the Democrat platform.
Well, no matter who you ask in the debate, everybody's got strong feelings. Obviously, you do as well, in so many different ways that you can look at that debate that's happening across the country right now. I appreciate you coming on with us, Deroy. Deroy Murdock, thank you.
My pleasure, Senator. Good to see you.